We did always have moles here, and finally I found signs again. I like moles, I think they're cool, and until the colony gets way out of control, they are welcome at Brimwood Farm. Hello and welcome to Brimwood Farm, and we are in my little personal patch of paradise today, and we're doing things a little bit different. So I asked guys over on Patreon, and then I asked on my Facebook group for questions about here and the plans for the future. And so today I'm going to find a seat where it's relatively dry because it is been raining a little bit, and I'm going to try and give you a few informative answers. So the first question is actually one to myself and that I can share with you, and it's when are we moving to the farm? The plan is in the coming year. Saad's visa is now being wrapped up so that we don't have these stringent financial requirements. He can get indefinite leave to remain, become a British citizen, and then we are more free. So that's kind of the hurdle that's happening right now. In a couple of weeks we're meeting with an architect, and then really it depends on what the architect says in terms of planning as to how soon we get here. It definitely won't be in the next 6 months. I want to do at least one more season of lambing and kidding at work, but the build may start happening before then, depending on planning. What we have decided is, if planning goes awry, because planning can take years, sometimes it's simple and your local council great, sometimes it's an absolute nightmare. If it's an absolute nightmare and it looks like it's going to take ages, we have decided that we will sell where we currently live and we will move up here, so that even if we're not on the land, we're within commuting distance, so we can still come and start working the business. There's a caravan on site as well. It's been here for 20 years, so I think it qualifies for change of use site as well. So there may be the potential that while planning is going, if we get planning, we then can live in a caravan on site for 5 years. If planning takes ages, there's a possibility we can get change of use for the old caravan and stick a caravan there. But in any instance where we can't actually get on this land, we are going to move closer within probably the next year, so we can start the actual farming dream. So that's really good. Right, now onto the proper questions. So I've got a couple from my Patreon. So first, Helen Keast says, are you still planning to keep quail when you move to the farm? The answer is yes, but for slightly different reasons. So at the moment, I keep quail because they're a really good urban homesteading animal for eggs and also for meat. You can't keep a sheep in your back garden, you can't keep a cow, but you can, if you want to eat meat, try and be ethical about it, try and locally source it, then keeping and raising your own stock is best, in my personal opinion, and having quail is easy to fit into your back garden. When I'm on the farm, I want to take as few lives as possible, because though I am a meat eater and though I want to educate people about eating local meat, eating high welfare meat, I don't want to become a food factory. I don't want to be pumping out lambs and cows and things. So for meat purposes, we won't be keeping quail, because why kill 20 quail when we could just have one lamb? We will keep them for eggs. Quail eggs are a high delicacy. I love them and lots of people enjoy them. And I also, when I've got more room, I've heard that when you put quail into larger enclosures where they've got grass and stuff, they do actually couple up, and they're kind of natural. So if you've ever tried to get quail to actually go broody, it's almost impossible. But put them in a more natural setting where they can pair up, they can become a pair, a monogamous pair. You often find that they will actually then turn broody and raise their own. So I'm really interested to try and do that here on the farm as well. So that's a long-winded quick answer. So yes, we will be keeping them, but for different reasons. The next question is also from one of my Patreons, the Corner Plot. And the contemplator asks, when you're on the farm, will you be having visitors, helpers, volunteers, or any ag students to the land? And again, I think the answer is probably yes. I'm not sure about agricultural students because there's kind of a whole, I'm sure we'd have to go through a whole kind of educational vetting behind that. I do definitely want to encourage visitors to come, and I do definitely want to encourage helpers and volunteers to come and work with us on the land, maybe learn some stuff from me, maybe I can learn some stuff from them. Certainly when we're initially setting up, we've got orchards to build, we've got a wood to plant, we've got scything to do, we've got all the wildlife studies to do. So whether your kind of interest is more farming and how we're going to rotate pastures and do mob grazing and things like that, whether you want that side of things or whether you're more interested in the conservation aspect, there'll be something. So yeah, we will be having visitors and volunteers coming to site, hopefully. And then there's a couple of ideas up here as well, business ideas to make some money from being here as well, and selling kind of weekend packages and things to people. So yes and yes. The next question is from Fred Schwartz, who actually was on the YouTube channel. I put a call out on the YouTube channel, and he said, what is your favourite farm animal and why? Ask me this question 2 years ago and I would have instantly said cows. Having now worked with cows on a farm, they are still a favourite. I still do love cows, don't get me wrong, but the steep curve of expense and learning when it comes to cows is quite incredible. There is a massive step up from having sheep and goats to having cows. The infrastructure you need is very different. In the UK, the red tape requirement is very different. As soon as you get into cows, you need to start doing TB testing, which can be super stressful. You need to have crushes. When it comes to calving, you've got to really know what you're doing, and you've got to have a lot more equipment. So there's a definite step up when it comes to cattle. So though I do still love cattle and I do still want some here, I don't know if they're my favourite animal anymore. So if you had to ask me now, it would actually be sheep. When I first started, I'd grown up with sheep. We had sheep here. My granddad had a flock of probably when it started about 100, and then it was whittled down to maybe 30, 40 towards the end. So I've always been around sheep. But until I started working with them and I was kind of in charge of them, the manager of the flock, I didn't realise how amazing sheep are. Now they can be scatty and they can be willful and they like to catch diseases and they like just to fall over in the middle of the night, get stuck upside down and die. But sheep actually have such great personalities. I like goats. Goats are great, but I find sheep and goats are a bit like cats and dogs. Goats are your cats. They like a cuddle now and then, they want you to feed them, but they're pretty self-sufficient. They will just go off and do their own thing. Sheep are way more like dogs. They will wait for you, they'll stand for you, they'll follow you around if you've made that good connection with you. They'll follow a bucket, they'll graze. They still have their naughty sides, of course, but generally, I love them. We have so many different species, breeds at work, and all the breed types have their own individual kind of personalities, the same as with dogs. Different dogs have certain traits, but also within the breeds, different sheep have their own traits as well. I love the lambing aspect, so I definitely think at the moment sheep are my favourite farm animal, and I cannot wait to get some of my own here. And now the final question. So we actually only have 4 questions because I put this call out quite late before I came up here. But I've got one more question and then we'll round off. So on Facebook, on the Facebook community group, so Brimwood Farm's community group on Facebook, B Law said, what is my view on horses? Will we be getting any, and are there any benefits? And she also said in her kind of her blurb and her question that she kind of felt intimidated by horses a little bit. I'm the same. They are big, powerful beasts, and I kind of feel like with cows, as long as you know what you're doing with a cow and you understand their behaviour and the way they think, cows can be managed. Horses, I kind of think, no matter how well you know a horse, no matter how long you've been working with a horse, one day that horse can just decide that it wants to screw you over and just be nasty for no reason. So I am also quite intimidated. I've got better. We had a pony when I was with my granddad when we lived here. Had a little pony, but wasn't allowed to do a vast amount with it. We've got a couple of ponies at work, so I've worked with them more. I would like to have some horses. I would like to potentially, I don't ride, but I would potentially like to give a home to some ex-race horses, kind of a retirement village for them, if you were. And I would also, I mean, this is a massive dream, considering I don't really know much about horses. I would love to have a heavy horse or a couple of heavy horses. The Suffolk Punch is a very rare breed for Suffolk. I would love to have a couple and work them, you know, have them pull a plough, have them work in a forest where I'm cutting down trees and they're hauling them out, and do something towards the rare breeds. And even if they're not potentially mine, potentially just have an area of land set aside where somebody else who's involved in that rare breed society can actually stable them here. But as I just said with stables, like cows, horses are a big step up in infrastructure, big step in investment, a lot more care needed. You know, sheep and goats, you can throw them in a field, you still have to check on them every day and still do all the livestock management stuff. But a horse needs a lot more care. So we do want them. Sard used to ride in Saudi Arabia. He adores horses. So we will almost certainly end up with one or two. But again, they're a long-term vision, because we can have field shelters and things for the sheep and the goats, and potentially even the cows, if we're only having a couple. For horses, we really need kind of an actual stable block. So that's our long-term goal. So that's all the questions. Thank you for submitting them. I will do another Q&A session. Hopefully we'll get a few more questions. As I said, this was quite a last minute thing thrown together because I wanted to kind of give you guys a few opportunities to ask some stuff. I hope that's given you a few ideas about what's going to be happening up here. Hopefully within the not too distant future. As I did mention, you can come across to Brimwood Farm's community group, that's over on Facebook, and also there is a link below and also on the end cards to Patreon. So if you want to check out my Patreon, you are more than welcome to check out Patreon as well. But for now, I should say goodbye. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.